Hey gang, Bill Sheridan with the Maryland Association here once again, back with another great CPA story for you this week. We've been, of course, on the hunt for that elusive CPA purpose, right? Have been for quite a while now. The why behind what CPAs do. We're looking to do our part to help change the narrative a little bit surrounding this noble profession. And this week, my guest is Calvin Harris. Calvin is CEO of the New York State Society of CPAs, the MACPA's New York sister organization, I guess you'd call it. But Calvin he's a Marylander through and through. He grew up in Oxon Hill, Maryland, just outside of DC. Has held a number of jobs in various segments of the profession over the years, right here in Maryland, and he's been at the New York Society now for almost 3 years. And his why, I guess it really comes down to the options and opportunities that are available to CPAs. I mean, you can go in almost any direction you can imagine, whether it's public practice, audit, tax, or whether it's corporate finance or working in government or education, or like Calvin does, for working for a not-for-profit organization, a CEO of an association. The world is available to CPAs in ways that it's not available, I think, to folks in other professions. I don't know if you can go so far as to say that you can write your own ticket in this profession, but it almost feels like it, right? And he says that these options and opportunities, they're just growing. There's more of them now than ever before. So it's a good time to be a CPA in Calvin Harris's mind. I'm going to let him explain a little bit more about what he means. Here is Calvin Harris with his
I
CPA
knew
story.
I wanted to be an accountant as a child,
Wow.
certainly as an early teen. My late mother, was a high school bookkeeping and typing teacher
Mhm.
in Waldorf, Maryland, in Charles County, Maryland. And I was one of those kids, for better or worse, I think often a bit of both, that was always trying to learn. So when my mother would bring home textbooks for lesson plans, I literally would read them. So I had read most of her. Technically, it was called business math, but that's essentially bookkeeping
Right.
and accounting. Essentially had read that, and I even convinced her to bring home a typewriter so I could type as a child, which is wildly nerdy, and doesn't even seem like that was appropriate for her to do. But yeah, I knew back then, and from there, I knew pretty solidly. And then in high school. Um, you know, High school, I was in Oxnard, Maryland, Potomac High School, and they offered bookkeeping, and I took bookkeeping, and I was in. So I knew wherever I was going to go to college that I was going to be an accounting major. I was absolutely solid on that, and pretty much never strayed away. So it
Never
was
look back.
it was love of accounting from a very early age, and
That's great.
exposure
Yeah,
to accounting at a very early age, which I think is one of the more critical challenges
absolutely.
right now. Is you can't expect that every accountant's going to have a mother or a parent at home
Well, and
that's
you
a
and
teacher.
I mean that exposure kind of gave you a little bit of insight that other people might not have. And by the way,
Absolutely.
what is it? I mean, at my school as well. So
Yeah.
our accounting or bookkeeping
Yeah.
teacher in high school also
Yeah.
taught typing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was about the two, how why they go hand in hand, but
I don't know because there was a third subject she taught that I never tried to learn, which I'm not sure, hopefully isn't anybody. I don't think anyone uses anymore. But she also taught shorthand,
oh
uh,
wow,
but
yeah,
believe it or not. But that would have been back when the person in my role would have a recorder.
I would have been
And
really impressed if you knew shorthand at this
yeah, I
point.
do not know shorthand. I mean, if you see my handwriting, I barely know longhand.
Yeah,
So
I know.
it,
Sometimes I'm the same way. Sometimes I feel like I should learn shorthand just
yeah.
so people know what I'm writing down. Um, uh, and you may be coming at this answer from a slightly different perspective, but the purpose or the why behind your work, Calvin. What do you accomplish by doing what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. I got to say, for me, it's multifaceted. Part of it is absolutely giving back because I've gotten a lot out of the accounting profession. Hopefully, I've given some back, but I've certainly received a ton.
Mhm.
So, in this role, particularly in a place like New York, which just by itself has so much influence and activity, I get to I'd get to literally give back to the profession that's done so much for me. Uh, but then beyond that, I believe from the smallest organization to the biggest organization, there are amazing opportunities in accounting. I believe that I'm proof of that, and I do worry. I guess it's good to have this kind of worry in this job, but I do worry that many folks, many younger people especially, aren't really seeing the profession as an option, and
Mm,
if they are seeing it, they're not seeing it in the most favorable light. By the way, some of that is self-inflicted wounds
mhm.
on the accounting profession in terms of how we characterize ourselves. So I get a lot out of doing that because I believe that it literally is good for the community. It's literally good for the country to have a strong accounting profession. CPAs, the public is part of our title, so serving the public trust. So when you bring all those things together, for me, it's hard to not be, and as a CPA myself, it's hard not to be, pretty passionate about the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I mean, talking about that, what do you love most about being a CPA? I mean, what's most gratifying, or what inspires you most about the job?
What really, even beyond the work I do now, I think just the options and the opportunities. I get a chance, as you might imagine, to talk to students all the time, formally or informally. And at a recent college stop, I think it was at Lehman College here in the Bronx, I counted off the number of jobs I've had,
Mhm.
which we stopped at 14. I mean, that doesn't include my very first job as a janitor, and my second as a moving at a moving company. But post college is 14, which would absolutely horrify my college placement officers. They would have been horrified by such a number. But the reality is the overwhelming majority of those opportunities came because of accounting, especially came because of being a CPA, because I was doing good work, or at least people thought I was doing good work at a place. And then there were opportunities that came my way. And in many cases, ones I was not seeking out that came to me because of the profession. So from that light, I think that's a huge thing
Yeah.
for us, and the opportunities are just endless. And I think even for me, despite having a mother who was a bookkeeping teacher, despite taking bookkeeping in high school, despite all the research I had done as a child, yeah, afraid that's true, in accounting, even I had no idea of the opportunities that can come from a CPA. It never would have occurred to me to that this job itself was possible as a CPA. And granted, of course, you don't have to be a CPA to be in this job, but I do think being a CPA does give me unique and particular insights that I can talk from my own experience
Sure.
of in the profession. So the opportunities I think, are the biggest thing that you can get from being a CPA.
Yeah, no doubt. And that might actually be part of the answer to this next question, Calvin. But
Yeah,
if you're faced with a high school or college student, you say you
yeah,
talk to them all the time about
yeah.
somebody who's maybe struggling to figure out where they fit in or what they want to
Sure.
do. I mean, what's your message to them about accounting? What do you tell them about the profession?
Well, the first thing I say, particularly now, is that irrespective of all the amazing adjustments and changes that are happening in technology, don't believe for a minute that accounting is going away.
Mhm.
That's one of the first things I try to tell them, and I use like a pretty much an old timey sort of reference. So like right behind me is Charles Waldo Hankins. Some of those names, if for those with history and accounting or literature, will pick up on two of those names. And yes, he is
Mhm.
involved in both, related to a famous author and one of the founders of an enormous firm. But when the CPA credential began here in New York, um, we were 5 years after electricity came into Lower Manhattan. I began my career many moons ago on green bar paper, green ledger paper. But by the time I left, we were doing everything on a computer. I was only at Arthur Andersen for 3.5 years, and that's how quickly things happen. Technology will absolutely change the profession. It's always done that. But electricity actually is a technological change. Doing so many things on our small phones are technological change. So one of the first things I say is that it will absolutely change, but that's why you have a unique advantage. A person coming into the profession now has an enormous advantage of someone like me who's been a CPA for what, 27, 28 years. You've got a huge advantage over me because you don't know what can't be done. You're coming in with eyes open. So I always emphasize to them is that yes, you should. Hopefully, you should listen to seasoned professionals and seasoned vets like me because we can give you a feel for our experiences. But you also need to balance that with recognizing. Hopefully, we recognize it when we're giving you that advice that the world has absolutely changed while we've been in the profession. It will continue to change for you. You're going to find new and amazing opportunities. But then going back to even my earlier comment on the opportunities within the CPA, I think that's where it still comes into play.
Mhm.
Um, I almost always include some sort of phrase along the lines of, I think it's as great a time as ever to be in the accounting profession. And it's not just some catchphrase, not just because I'm CEO. I literally believe that. You
Mhm.
know, there's a, you can't turn back the hands of time, at least as far as I know. But I be knowing what I know, knowing what I've experienced, I would be so excited to be entering the profession right now. Despite all the naysayers in the chat, I think they're absolutely missing the boat. I think the opportunities are greater than ever.
Great stuff there from Calvin Harris. So glad he could take time out of his busy schedule to be here today. We want to hear from you as well. So please head on over to macpa.org/Y and share your story with us as we try to offer a little bit of inspiration to the next generation of accounting and finance professionals. We want to hear what your CPA purpose is too. And in the meantime, thanks for being here as always. We'll be back again next week. More stories to share then. Until then, have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.